My love, before you judge me, before you decide what I deserve, there is something I need you to hear. Yes, I made a mistake, not because I stopped loving you, not because you weren't enough, and not because my heart ever wanted to hurt yours. I made a mistake because I am human, because sometimes fear speaks louder than wisdom, because sometimes the people who love the deepest are also the ones who stumble the hardest. Every day since that moment, I've carried the weight of what happened. I've replayed every word, every choice, every second that led me here. And if I could go back and change it, I would do it without hesitation. But life doesn't give us that chance. All it gives us is today, this moment, and the courage to tell the truth. So today, my love, I'm not standing before you as a perfect man. I'm standing before you as a man who learned the value of your heart after realizing how close he came to losing it. This is not a story about excuses. This is a story about love, regret, growth, and a heart that still whispers your name when the world is quiet. So if you'll give me a few moments of your time, let me tell you why that mistake happened, what it taught me, and why my love for you never changed. My love, yes, I made a mistake. Those words are not easy to say. They are not comfortable. They do not make me look strong. They do not make me look wise. They do not erase the pain that followed. But they are the truth, and today I want to stand before you with nothing except the truth. Because love deserves honesty, and if I truly love you the way I say I do, then I cannot hide behind excuses. I cannot point fingers at circumstances. I cannot pretend that what happened was someone else's fault. I cannot build walls around my pride and hope they protect me from accountability. The truth is simple. I made a mistake, not because I stopped loving you, not because you were not enough, not because there was someone better. I made a mistake because I am human, and sometimes human beings allow fear, confusion, insecurity, and weakness to speak louder than the heart. There are moments in life when a person looks back and realizes that the greatest damage was not caused by hate, it was caused by a lack of understanding. It was caused by taking something precious for granted. It was caused by believing there would always be another chance. And my love, that was my mistake. I believed tomorrow would always be there. I believed there would always be another conversation, another hug, another laugh, another opportunity to tell you how much you meant to me. I thought love was strong enough to survive neglect. I thought your heart would always understand my silence. I thought you would somehow know everything I was feeling, even when I refused to say it, and now I understand how unfair that was, because hearts are not mind readers. Love is not maintained by assumptions. Love needs attention. Love needs effort. Love needs words. Love needs presence. And sometimes I failed to give those things to you. I wish I could tell you that I recognized my mistake immediately. I wish I could tell you that I understood everything the moment it happened. But growth rarely works that way. Sometimes life teaches us through consequences. Sometimes understanding arrives after the damage is already done. Sometimes wisdom comes from staring at an empty space where someone we love used to stand. And that is a painful lesson. There were nights when I replayed every conversation, every message, every moment. I searched through memories the way a lost traveler searches for a path home. I examined every decision, every reaction, every word I should have said. Every word I should have kept to myself, and slowly I began to see things differently. I began to understand that mistakes are rarely one terrible moment. Most mistakes begin much earlier. They begin with little things, little moments we ignore, little concerns we dismiss, little wounds we promise ourselves we will address later, until one day those little things become something much larger. I think about all the times you needed reassurance, all the moments when you needed me to listen more carefully, all the moments when your eyes were asking questions your lips never spoke, and I wonder why I didn't see them clearly. Maybe I was distracted, maybe I was overwhelmed, maybe I was fighting battles inside myself that I never told you about. But none of those explanations changed the outcome, none of them erased the hurt, and that is why I do not stand here asking for sympathy. I stand here offering honesty, because the woman I love deserves honesty. You deserved it then, you deserve it now. You always deserved a version of me that was brave enough to communicate openly instead of expecting you to figure everything out alone. For a long time, I believed strength meant carrying everything by myself. I believed strength meant hiding pain, hiding fear, hiding uncertainty. I thought protecting you meant never letting you see my struggles, but real love taught me something different. Real love taught me that vulnerability is not weakness, it is trust. It is allowing another person to see your imperfect heart. It is allowing someone to know your fears and still stay. And perhaps one of my greatest mistakes was not letting you see how much I needed you, not because you weren't important, but because you were so important that I was afraid. Afraid of disappointing you, afraid of appearing broken, afraid of looking less than the man I wanted to be. Yet all that fear created distance, and distance has a way of growing when left unattended. The strange thing about mistakes is that they often reveal what truly matters. When everything is fine, we move through life without paying enough attention. But when something breaks, suddenly we see its value. When silence replaces conversation, when absence replaces presence, when memories replace moments, we begin to understand, and I understood that your laughter had become part of my peace. I understood that your voice had become part of my comfort. I understood that your presence had become part of my everyday happiness. I understood that love is not something we notice only when it arrives. Sometimes we notice it most when it is missing. I know there are people who believe apologies are enough, that saying I'm sorry should somehow fix everything. But love is more complicated than that. Words matter, but actions matter too. Growth matters, Shan matters, because an apology without growth is only repetition waiting for another opportunity. And I never wanted my regret to become a cycle. I wanted it to become a lesson that transformed me, a lesson that taught me how precious another person's heart truly is. You know, life has a way of humbling us. It reminds us that we are not perfect. It reminds us that intentions and outcomes are not always the same thing. I never intended to hurt you, but intention does not erase impact, and learning that truth changed me. It forced me to stop seeing situations only from my perspective. It forced me to imagine what things felt like through your eyes, what my silence sounded like, what my distance felt like, what my mistakes looked like from where you stood. And when I began to see things through your perspective, my heart broke in ways I had never expected, because I realized that while I was struggling with my own fears, you were carrying questions I never answered. While I was trying to protect myself, you were wondering where you stood. While I was trapped inside my own thoughts, you were feeling alone. That realization stays with me, it follows me, it teaches me, and it reminds me that love is not simply about feeling deeply, it is about showing those feelings consistently. Anyone can say, I love you, but love becomes real in patience, love becomes real in effort, love becomes real in listening, love becomes real in understanding, love becomes real in the daily choices we make. And if I could return to those moments, I would choose differently, I would listen longer, I would speak more honestly, I would hold your hand more often, I would let my walls fall sooner, I would tell you what was happening inside my heart before confusion had a chance to grow. But life moves only forward. We cannot rewrite chapters, we can only learn from them. And perhaps that is one of the hardest truths of all. The past remains where it is, untouchable, unchangeable, permanent. Yet even though we cannot change the past, we can allow it to shape who we become. We can allow pain to teach wisdom. We can allow regret to teach gratitude. We can allow mistakes to teach love. And that is what I have tried to do. Every painful memory became a teacher. Every moment of regret became a reminder. Every lesson became a step toward becoming a better man, not a perfect man, just a better one, because perfection does not exist, but growth does. Growth is real. Growth happens every time we choose responsibility over excuses, every time we choose humility over pride, every time we choose understanding over defensiveness, every time we choose love over ego. And my love, I have learned that ego is one of the most dangerous things in any relationship. It convinces us we are right when we should be listening. It convinces us to protect our pride instead of protecting each other. It convinces us to win arguments while losing connection. I spent too much time believing certain things mattered, and then life showed me what truly matters. Kench matters, trust matters, kenness matters, presence matters, the ability to sit beside someone and make them feel seen matters. The ability to make them feel valued matters, the ability to make them feel safe matters. You taught me these things, even through pain, even through disappointment, even through mistakes. Sometimes the people we love become our greatest teachers without ever intending to be, and you became mine, not because everything was perfect, but because your love revealed parts of me that needed healing. Your presence exposed fears I had hidden for years. Your honesty revealed truths I was avoiding, and your absence forced me to confront them. There is a certain loneliness that comes from realizing you hurt someone you never wanted to hurt. It is a loneliness filled with reflection, filled with questions, filled with memories. You sit with yourself, you revisit old conversations, you hear words differently, you see moments differently, you understand things differently, and somewhere in that process you begin to grow. Not because growth feels good, but because staying the same becomes impossible. I learned that love is not proven when everything is easy. Love is revealed when things become difficult, when misunderstandings appear, when mistakes happen, when disappointment arrives, when hearts become fragile. Those moments reveal character, those moments reveal maturity, those moments reveal whether someone is willing to learn. And I wanted to learn, I wanted to become someone who listens more carefully, someone who loves more intentionally, someone who communicates more openly, someone who values the heart of the woman he loves as carefully as he values his own, because love should never feel like a battle for attention. Love should never feel like a place where someone constantly questions their worth. Love should never feel like loneliness shared between two people. Love should feel like partnership, like trust, like comfort, like home. And if there is one thing my mistake taught me, it is that home is not a place. Home is a person. Home is the feeling of being understood, the feeling of being accepted, the feeling of being loved despite imperfections. And those feelings are precious, far too precious to take for granted, far too precious to neglect, far too precious to assume they will always remain no matter how little effort we give them, because love, like a garden, requires care, it requires attention, it requires patience, it requires time. And when we stop caring for it, even beautiful things begin to fade. I know now that love cannot survive on intentions alone. It survives on action, on consistency, on daily choices, on showing up even when life feels complicated, on choosing each other again and again and again. My love, if there is one thing life has taught me, it is that love is not measured by how perfect two people are. It is measured by what they do after imperfection appears. Anyone can love when everything feels easy. Anyone can smile when there is no conflict. Anyone can promise forever when the road is smooth and the sky is clear. But true love reveals itself when mistakes happen, when disappointment enters the room, when tears replace laughter, when trust feels wounded, when two hearts stand on opposite sides of pain and wonder if they can find their way back to each other. That is where love is tested, not in the beautiful moments, but in the difficult ones. Because real love is not the absence of failure. Real love is the courage to grow after failure. And my love, I failed. I made mistakes. I had moments when I should have listened more carefully, moments when I should have understood you better, moments when I allowed fear, pride, confusion, or weakness to guide my decisions instead of the love I carried for you. I wish I could tell you that I always knew the right thing to do. I wish I could tell you that I never hurt the person I cared about most. But the truth is different. The truth is that loving someone does not automatically make us wise. Sometimes we learn wisdom through loss. Sometimes we learn maturity through regret. Sometimes we learn the value of a heart only after realizing how deeply it can be wounded. And that realization changed me, because after every mistake, I had a choice. I could blame circumstances. I could blame timing. I could blame misunderstandings. I could create excuses that made me feel comfortable, or I could face the truth. I could look at my reflection and ask myself difficult questions. I could ask where I failed. I could ask what I needed to change. I could ask whether I was becoming the kind of man capable of protecting the love I claimed was so important to me. Growth begins with those questions. Growth begins when excuses end. There is something powerful about accepting responsibility, not because it feels good, it rarely does, but because responsibility opens the door to transformation. The moment we stop blaming everything around us, we begin discovering what we can improve within ourselves. And my love, that journey is not easy. It requires humility. It requires honesty. It requires the willingness to admit that sometimes our actions hurt the people we never intended to hurt. For a long time, I thought change happened quickly. I thought people woke up one morning completely different than they were the day before. Life showed me something else. Real change happens slowly, quickly, one lesson at a time, one realization at a time, one difficult conversation at a time, one painful memory at a time. Like water shaping stone, growth transforms us through consistency rather than sudden miracles, and every mistake became part of that process. Every regret became a teacher. Every painful memory carried a lesson hidden inside it. I learned how important communication communication is. I learned that silence can create wounds just as easily as harsh words. I learned that assumptions are dangerous. I learned that love requires attention. I learned that understanding someone means more than simply hearing their words. It means hearing the emotions behind those words. It means paying attention to the things they never say out loud. It means noticing the sadness hidden behind a smile, the exhaustion hidden behind strength, the fear hidden behind silence. Love taught me to pay attention before I listened to respond. Now I try to listen to understand. That single difference changes everything. Because people do not always need solutions. Sometimes they need presence. Sometimes they need patience. Sometimes they need someone who simply stays, someone who makes them feel heard, someone who makes them feel valued, someone who reminds them they are not carrying their burdens alone. I understand that now in ways I never understood before. Failure has a strange way of revealing truth. When everything is going well, we often overlook important things, but when something breaks, suddenly we notice every detail. We notice what mattered. We notice what we neglected. We notice what we should have appreciated more, and I noticed you, not just the idea of you, not just the role you played in my life. I noticed the small things, the way you cared, the way you worried, the way you remembered details most people forgot, the way you gave love even when your own heart felt tired, the way you stood beside me during moments when it would have been easier to walk away. Those things became impossible to ignore, and they taught me gratitude, real gratitude, the kind that changes behavior, the kind that transforms how a person loves, because appreciation means very little if it never becomes action. Anyone can say they appreciate someone. The question is whether they show it, whether they make that person feel appreciated, whether they make that person feel seen, whether they make that person feel cherished. That is what growth taught me. Love is not a feeling we store inside ourselves. Love is something we express, something we demonstrate, something we practice every day. There were times when I believed being present was enough. Now I know there is a difference between being physically present and being emotionally available. A person can sit beside someone while being miles away emotionally. A person can hear words without truly listening. A person can say, "I love you," without making the other person feel loved. And understanding that truth changed how I see relationships, because love deserves more than routine. Love deserves intention. It deserves effort. It deserves attention. It deserves people who continue choosing each other long after the excitement of the beginning fades. The strongest relationships are not built by people who never fail. They are built by people who refuse to stop learning, people who refuse to stop growing, people who refuse to allow mistakes to become permanent patterns. That is what I wanted. Not perfection. Growth, not flawless love. Intentional love, not a relationship free from problems. A relationship strong enough to face problems together. There is beauty in transformation, not the transformation that happens overnight. The transformation that happens through experience. The transformation that happens when pain becomes wisdom. The transformation that happens when regret becomes understanding. The transformation that happens when someone decides they would rather become better than remain comfortable. That kind of change lasts because it is earned. It comes from reflection, from accountability, from humility, from courage. And perhaps courage is one of the most misunderstood things in the world. People think courage means never being afraid, but I think courage means facing the truth despite fear. It means admitting mistakes despite pride. It means apologizing despite vulnerability. It means changing despite discomfort. It means choosing growth, even when growth requires leaving old versions of ourselves behind. And my love, some parts of me needed to be left behind. The part that avoided difficult conversations, the part that allowed fear to create distance, the part that expected understanding without offering enough communication, the part that sometimes protected pride instead of protecting connection. Those parts needed to change because true love demands evolution, not because someone forces us to evolve, but because love itself inspires it. When you genuinely love someone, you want to become better. You want to become more patient, more understanding, more thoughtful, more compassionate. You want to become someone capable of nurturing the happiness of the person you love. That desire is one of the most beautiful things in the world, and failure awakened that desire inside me. It forced me to examine every corner of my heart, to confront insecurities, to confront fears, to confront habits that no longer served the future I wanted, because the truth is that love cannot thrive where growth refuses to exist. Every healthy relationship requires evolution. Two people learning, two people adapting, two people discovering better ways to care for one another. No relationship survives simply because love exists. Relationships survive because people continue choosing growth, they continue choosing effort, they continue choosing understanding, and understanding is powerful. The more I reflected on my mistakes, the more I realized that every person carries invisible battles, every person carries fears, every person carries scars, every person carries memories that shape how they love and how they react. Understanding that made me gentler, it made me slower to judge, it made me quicker to listen, because sometimes people are not difficult, sometimes they are hurting, sometimes they are afraid, sometimes they are carrying burdens we cannot see. And compassion begins when we remember that. Love taught me compassion. Failure deepened it and growth strengthened it. Now when I think about love, I no longer imagine perfection. I imagine two imperfect people choosing each other despite imperfections. I imagine patience. I imagine forgiveness. I imagine effort. I imagine honesty. I imagine two hearts learning together, because learning never ends. No matter how much we know, no matter how much experience we have, there is always something new to understand, something new to improve, something new to appreciate, and that is what makes love beautiful. It remains alive because it continues growing, just like people, just like relationships, just like hearts. The mistakes of yesterday do not have to define tomorrow. They can educate tomorrow. They can strengthen tomorrow. They can prepare us for a healthier and deeper connection, only if we are willing to learn, only if we are willing to change, only if we are willing to become better than we were before. That is what true love does. It does not run from failure, it learns from it. It does not hide from mistakes, it grows through them. It does not surrender when things become difficult, it searches for wisdom inside the difficulty. And every lesson I learned brought me closer to understanding what love truly means. Not possession, not control, not perfection, but commitment, patience, respect, growth, understanding, and the willingness to keep becoming a better version of ourselves for the people who matter most.